Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
That's right. Welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad. My name's Dave Momper. I'm your host. This is a fatherhood podcast for new dads and soon-to-be dads. I'm a new dad myself, and I'm asking every day, great dads, what does it take? What does it truly take to take on the ultimate role? All right, let's get to it. Justin LeVett, welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad, my friend.
It's good to be here. Glad we made this work.
Yeah, a long time coming. 10 years in the making, you might say.
10 years.
8 years?
Has it
When
been?
do you feel like your first photography session for Creative Mornings Denver had to have been 8 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe not right from the start, but we met because of Creative Mornings Denver.
Yes.
The talented Justin LeVett as a photographer, donating his time, coming in, capturing the morning, capturing the event, capturing people, croissants, cups of coffee, the speaker. Yeah, here we are now,
Coffee.
almost a decade later. What was your favorite part of that role, by the way?
I think it was just like meeting everybody. Because like when you just attend creative mornings, you kind of get locked into your like little groups.
Oh, interesting.
And then as a photographer, like you can't be locked into a group because you have to be capturing everybody. So I think the fun part is just being able to meet everybody and talk to a ton of people instead of just small groups.
I like that a lot. Great observation and such a cool dynamic. That's similar as the host for the last 5 years. I would say hello to people, but I'd have things to do. I was kind of tending to a bunch of stuff, so I had to keep it short and see a bunch of people and
Mm-hmm.
almost I almost did not connect with as many people as I wanted, as deeply as I wanted, because I had a million things on my mind.
Yeah.
Putting on an event that day, but
Yeah, there's a lot of things to keep track of, and you didn't want to get stuck in one spot and then be like, shoot, I didn't get like all these other little things to fall into place. And
right.
yeah.
Did we do a mic check yet? Do we?
Yeah.
Well, the good
Do we put
fortune
the
of
rug
Creative
out?
Mornings once a month roughly brought us together, and a couple other endeavors, networking events and park gatherings and whatnot. So it's a treat to be a buddy of yours and friends with your lovely wife Rachel, and your daughter is so darn cute. It's amazing. It's so darn cute. So before
She
I
is cute.
prompt you with, I want to hear some stories about Emmy, but I want to also note the level of photography that you bring to the table. Professional photographer, you're capturing all sorts of professionals in portrait capacities for headshots and so forth, but you do a lot of really cool. I don't know, what would you call that category where, for instance, you were in Lockbuoy recently,
Oh, yeah.
machinery and whatnot. What's that category of photography as a forte?
Um, that one, I'd put that one more into like industrial photography,
Yep.
which is a lot of fun. I don't get to experience it as much as I would like, but I think that my grandfather instilled on me a little bit. He designed heavy machinery and farm equipment, and he was always, just designing and making machinery. So anytime I get to be around heavy equipment or in an industrial space is a lot of fun.
Probably kind of related or similar in the medical device world because you're taking a lot of pictures of medical settings
Oh
and the
man,
machinery in there. Is that similar to you, or is that a different realm technically?
I think that's a different realm. I think that's like specifically healthcare. Um, I never got into photography to do healthcare, but it's fascinating and I love photographing people in their space doing what they love and showing me how much smarter they are than I am.
And all the amazing advanced technologies that and tools that we have access to as humans via the healthcare system is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and also like I love seeing like the care that doctors and nurses have for their patients.
Okay,
Um, we don't get to photograph a whole lot of like doctors in real life patients together,
sure.
but every now and then I get a little project here or there where we do get to have doctors and patients together, and that's a lot of fun.
What is
Because I
the
get
ultimate? What's the ultimate draw to photography for you as a profession, spending a tremendous amount of your time and energy and talent in that realm? What's the ultimate draw to it?
ooh, that's a good question. I ask people questions all the time about like what got them into their role, and they're like, "Ooh, that's a good question," and I don't get asked that very often. So thanks. Um, let's see. I don't know. I just like connecting with people. Um, Initially, when I got into photography, I didn't want to like talk with people. I wanted to do product photography, and that was it because the products wouldn't talk back to you, and I was really shy at that time. And then the world kind of smacked me in the face, and I realized, oh, I actually have to talk to people. And something switched, and I just really liked to connect with people on a personal level, and being able to photograph them and talk to them and um, make them feel comfortable in front of the camera. Because I would say 99.5% of the people that come in front of me in front of a camera are like, I hate having my photo taken. And in order to get a good photograph and make people feel comfortable, you have to connect with them. And I think it's just that connection that really draws me to photography. So,
I love that. You got to know the tool that is the camera well
yeah,
and how to use it and adjustments and settings, but you have to be able to evoke, humanity out of your fellow humans and you're so good at that and I can see why Creative Mornings was such a good place for you to, you know, contribute because you could quickly connect with people, friendly face. They got to see you over and over, and
yeah.
you captured the best moments for us. So
Huh, well, thanks.
absolutely. All right, so fatherhood, man. Whew. So much fun in the I don't know, the last couple of years talking to you as you've become a dad, and then as I was expecting and Mac was expecting, this time last year, a couple conversations we've had, and now it's the real deal, right?
Yeah.
So I had prompted you to share with me what you thought the the key attributes of being a legendary father were. I had asked you, what does it mean to be a legendary dad? And knowing you and what a humble guy you are, you did respond by saying, I never thought I was legendary. But that's not the case. You are a legendary man. And you go on to say, I always wanted to be a good present dad, and being a girl dad is pretty fun. You remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
So tell our listeners about the journey of becoming a father for Justin LeVett.
Okay, so the journey for us to become parents was a little bit different than most. We went through a bunch of fertility stuff because it just wasn't working. And then it got to a point where we knew that there was a hard stop if the doctors were like, your only chance is IVF. And it ended up getting to that point, and it was like, the only way that you're going to become parents is through IVF. And we were like, cool. We know that that's our hard stop, and we know what our answer is. And we knew that like God was directing us into adoption. So we ended up going and working with an adoption agency here in Colorado, and they were close to our house. They were just in Golden, which was a lot of fun, and they had a lot of really good reviews. So we ended up going through the whole adoption process, which that took about 2 years um, for us to be able to go from signing on, going through our home study and all of our training, and then passing all of our background checks and going through the actual like beginning of uh, the adoption process of seeing potential matches.
Mm.
And that I knew was going to be a roller coaster, but it was much more of an emotional roller coaster than I could ever imagine. Um,
How so?
it it just it pulls at your heartstrings so hard. Like we would get a potential match. We would have, maybe a day to look over the file, so we'd be able to see um, the birth mother's information and some of her background and how far along she was in her pregnancy journey, and then we'd get to say yes or no at the end of like whether we'd be in to be a potential match.
Hmm.
And then sometimes we wouldn't hear back for 2 weeks.
Mm.
Like we had a day to decide, and then it was like 2 weeks down the road. We just don't know what's happening. We don't hear anything. It's just really hard. And then we'd hear, no, you weren't picked. So it was really hard. And we saw quite a few potential matches come through, and we'd say yes or no, we're in or not. Usually, if it was from Florida, we were out. Um,
Mm.
and that was just some weird things with the Florida system, because our adoption agency here has different offices in different states. So then we could see a potential match from another state. We wanted to keep it local, and then we thought we were going to. We were like in the final running with a potential match here in Colorado, and we were like, "Hey, that would be awesome! Like, it's working out," and it was for a boy, and we didn't know how to wrap our heads around having a boy. I had like long before we even started trying for to be parents. I had a premonition, or I had a dream of some kind, that I was like, we're gonna have a girl first, and we had been locked in on that, and then there was this potential match of a boy, and we are like, we don't have any boy names, we don't know how to handle this. And then we heard on Valentine's Day 2020 that we were not chosen. So that was a pretty hard day. And then
I can imagine that the mountains and valleys of that experience, getting excited but trying not to get excited, and then
yeah,
having to wait. That waiting game sounds awful. You only have a day to decide, but then you have to potentially wait for a week or two.
yeah,
And then, I would say statistically, you tell me what it is, but other people are submitting a request for, for that adoptee, and what is it, 1 out of 10? What are the numbers? What does it take?
it just kind of it depends.
I guess it
Like,
does. Huh?
yeah, like it could be, you see one potential match and then you get chosen right away.
Mm.
And so like right after we got our home study finished, that same week we had gotten a potential match, and we were like, we don't have any money for this. Like, so adoption is expensive as well. So we ended up doing a refinance on our house and taking out some of our equity in order to pay for our adoption, pay for all the adoption fees and all of that. So I would say, imagine having Leo, but paying for everything out of pocket.
Right. Wow.
Like same thing on our side. For adoption, there's no insurance that helps pay for it.
Sure.
It's out of pocket. So um, it's a big thing. But then Emmeline's potential match came through, and so our journey is a lot different. Like you and Mac had 10 months to prepare for Leo's arrival. We had Emmy's room was set, and we had a bassinet in there, we had kids' clothes, we had a dresser, we had everything was ready, but we kind of had like this hard heartstring that we every time we'd pass that room we were like, it's empty and we don't know who's going to be in it. So there's some of the emotional roller coaster as well. But
Wow.
Emmeline's story came about on a Friday. It was my parents' anniversary in March. So it was March 6th, 2020. And we got a potential match. Rachel called me from school and um, they said, hey, we need you to look over this file and we need to know in the next 30 minutes if you're in or not. So we look over this potential match. Emmeline's already a month old. And we were like, yeah, we'd be in. And there's a lot of people in the adoption process that want to adopt an infant and take them home from the hospital. And we were in that category as well, but we were like, if the Lord provides a child and it's just the right child, we'll be in. Just the right story to her background, and we'd be in. And we looked over the file and we're like, yep, we're good. We want to be in the running for this one. And they called us that same day in the afternoon at like 3 p.m. and they said, you're chosen.
Incredible.
And then, so crazy story, like we're going to be parents. We had 3 hours to prepare that we're going to be parents. And then, I call my parents. I'm like, hey, we were chosen. Like, happy anniversary. You guys are going to be grandparents. And so Emmeline was in Phoenix, and I'm talking to the adoption agency in Phoenix, the office in Phoenix, and I was like, so when do we need to be to Phoenix by? And this is like 3 p.m. on a Friday. And they're like, tomorrow would be good. So I was like, so how urgent is it? Do we need to like fly there and be there first thing in the morning, or can we drive from Denver? And they're like, oh, just let us know what you're going to do, but be here by tomorrow. So it was a crazy time. And between the time of us finding out that we were chosen and us holding her was about 30 hours.
Wow.
So we dropped everything and we drove to Phoenix. And it was probably a good thing we drove to Phoenix, because the beginning of March 2020, things got weird. Worldwide. We adopted her the weekend before the world shut down.
Wow. Wow.
And I called my cousin who lived in Phoenix, and I was like, hey, Sonny, can Rachel and I stay at your house for an unknown amount of time? And she's like, with a baby. And she was like, yeah, sure. You guys can stay in the guest room. No big deal.
No.
So we had like friends come over to the house and like drop off some stuff. They're like, here's like a travel bassinet. It'll work out great for, the beginning of your guys' life. Like, it folded up, it worked. And I called a friend and was like, hey, can you stay at our house for an unknown amount of time? Because we're adopting. And he was like, yeah, sure. He's like, I'll watch your dog for however long you need. And he stayed at our house, and it was a good thing. He was a college kid, and his college shut down and kicked everybody out because of the pandemic and said, you got to go home. And he's like, cool. I'm already staying at somebody else's house. That's great.
Wow. So it all came together like fast, and then all the key factors, coalesced.
Yeah, they all fell into place just perfect. So, yeah, so that was the beginning of dadhood for me, was driving 15 hours to Phoenix and and calling clients as we're driving through Utah being like, we have to reschedule everything.
Right.
And they're like, well, when are you going to be back? And I'm like, I don't know.
Not quite sure.
I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so it was a fun start to fatherhood.
I want to touch on, you said it makes sense why you would have to do this from an adoptee or adoption process standpoint. They put you through training to
Mm-hmm.
be the right household, the right parents, and yet there's no training for me or
Right.
Matt, right? So how funny is that, by the way? And then what was the training process like and which aspects of it did you feel like were were actually really valuable for equipping you to be great parents?
Yeah, so the training, the parenthood training is interesting. I learned how to swaddle a baby, um, and change some diapers, and just be attentive to parenting. Um, Being an adoptive parent is a little bit different because your wife doesn't carry the baby, so you don't have that connection. So you have to really pay attention to the connection part
Mm,
um, of connecting with your child, and so they took you through some training on that, on like how you know when your adoptive child is crying, you should be there like on top of it really quick, especially in that first like fourth trimester, as they like to call it,
sure.
those first 3 months. And honestly, like as much as the pandemic like wrecked the world, it was like perfect for us because we're adoptive parents, and me being a freelance photographer, um, during the training part and our home study, which we'd have a social worker come to our house numerous times to like look over our house and make sure that it's safe, make sure you have a fire extinguisher, because all parents who carry their own childs definitely have fire extinguishers around.
Wow.
um, yeah, we had to have the right kind of fire extinguisher and have it in a place and make sure it's charged, and like make sure that all of the cabinets have baby lock stuff on them even though we don't have a child in the home. Like everything had to be
Correct.
perfectly lined up.
Wow.
So that's what some of the training and home study stuff was for. There was tests that, or not tests, but um, questionnaires that we'd have to fill out to make sure that we would be attentive um, parents for a child in the home.
Mm,
So yeah, you have to go through a lot of stuff that you don't have to go through when you have your own child.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
it's
but there's
fascinating.
like but there's like another level of, I guess, liability in a way, where like the adoption agency's name is on the line. Like
That's the truth. Yep.
if they match you with a child and then eventually have to pull that child out of the home because you're a bad parent, like that's their name on the line as well.
That's
So
yeah, that's on them.
they have to
That's
make sure that the match is going to be good.
yeah.
And like if you have to pull a kid out of the home for any reason anyways, that's not good.
That's,
um so yeah, so they need to make sure that everything is good to go with the home, and luckily we were good to go, so we passed.
of course you did. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not even
but
surprised. I would almost love to see that list. It's like, I know we do have fire extinguishers. I know exactly where one is near the kitchen. We haven't cabinet proofed our house by any means,
yeah,
and Leo's approaching 7 months at this point. So he's opening drawers at his level. He's opening drawers.
yeah,
He's not yet walking around or whatnot. So the danger is limited currently, but we will need to baby proof cabinets. We have a couple plants that are up on there's this one plant that's up on a steel platform. It's kind of this, four legs. And at one point he was yanking on the legs and there's this giant pot right here. I'm like, okay, so we've barricaded that, you know,
yeah,
there's some cords, some light, just imagine kind of like Christmas lights or holiday lights in an arch that we have that at one point it was like he grabbed onto it. Like, crap, we got to do that. So we're kind of reactive to
yeah,
it, and
yeah,
um, but nothing, nothing crazy. That if we see anything that's blatant, of course we're being proactive. But we're not prepping the home thoroughly to pass some test by any means,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then we do have, we have a baby gate that was already in the house that we're renting that goes downstairs.
hmm,
So there's some things that are already configured for us, but we're definitely, we wouldn't pass. We wouldn't pass. We have to be much more
You'd
thorough and
have
intentional.
you'd have to do some things. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nothing
yeah, I guess
major, but
intentionality was a big part of um, passing our home study. So yeah,
amazing. So
yeah,
four years ago, roughly, right about now,
yeah,
a little over 4 years ago, and I know your daughter's now 4 as of February, so four
right.
and 2 months or so. What has been the most surprising aspect of fatherhood for you? Being an adoptive parent, being a
Hmm.
dad in general, being a dad to, as you said, being a girl dad is the
Yeah.
best, right? So, but what within all of that is the most surprising aspect in the last 4 years?
um, I mean, there's been like multiple surprising things along the way, and I'm
Sure.
sure it happens with fatherhood in general. Um, I was expecting to like be able to connect with her on a personal level a lot quicker than what happened. Um, those first 6 months, man, like those were rough. Like in in Phoenix was not rough. I would say between the ages of 3 months and 7 months, her age were rough for me because it was just frustrating. Like I would pick her up and she would cry.
Mm,
I would hand her to Rachel, my wife, mom, and she would just instantly stop crying and she was just happy as could be.
mm.
And that was really frustrating for me because I was just like, but I'm your dad. Like sometimes you're good, but other times you're not good. Like what's going on? Why is this so bad? And like why I'm going to for sure have the cops called on me because I'm sure you can hear like bloody murder being screamed from inside the house outside as I'm trying to change your diaper. Like and then like my grandma, great grandma would hold her and she would just be all smiles and happy. And it was like anytime any woman would hold her, she would just be happy as a clam.
They
Um,
have the touch. They really do have the
they
touch.
do. Yeah. And I was like, why can't I get this touch? So that was rough for me. That was surprising. Um,
In those moments, knowing you enough of thinking, you're going, this is temporary. This will pass. But this, I mean, I'm sure you were feeling, oh, this sucks. I would just want, a little squeeze back or a little calm. But
something.
did you, I guess I should ask versus assume, but you knew it was temporary, or were you, you
Oh
know,
no, I broke a lot of things during that time.
yeah, yeah,
As a guy, when you break things, like stress gets relieved and
yeah,
it like goes out. Yeah, I broke a lot of things during that time. So we went through some plastic chairs for the backyard, and I threw things into the yard, heavy things, and that made me happier. I rode my bike a lot harder during those times.
yes,
Um, so yeah, there were some things that were broken.
no
Um,
doubt.
not like bad things. There's still a hole in the wall that I need to replace, but it wasn't from a fist. It was from me like swinging a door open that didn't have a stopper on it, and the doorknob just went straight through the wall. Um, yeah, that was a fun time. But like other surprising things, just like after, I guess after her and I have spent a lot more time together, it's just we have a lot of fun. Um, and I think that's one of the surprising things is just how much fun we can have, and then also just how receptive she is to when we need to have a hard talk, and then she like gets it, and you're like you just have like a eye to eye conversation. So like a lot of the times when something's up, like I'll get down at eye level for her and we actually have like a really personal conversation and she gets it and then she's like, "Oh, okay, I won't do that again." Um and and then she doesn't do it again. So that's really cool. So
Wow.
she like gets it.
At four,
Um
getting those lessons and consequences and requests. That's amazing.
yeah, and she, like I think we've only had her go into a timeout type of a thing like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely less than 5 times. Um, and she just gets it. Maybe that's her temperament as well. She just, observes and gets it, and then she's like, "Oh, maybe I won't do it that way again."
Mm.
Um, so, and then, yeah, and we just have fun together. So it's easier to get constructive like concepts when you play together than when you're like trying to argue, because arguments never go anywhere. Every side is just like, this is my side and I am not moving from my side. But then like when you play and have fun together, that's when those constructs actually connect.
It's amazing how valuable play is for a
Yeah.
kiddo, and how generative, and how, what's the right word, like how formational play can be for a kiddo. And it's not a surprise, but I wonder, at what point did adults feel like, oh, we can't play any longer, we have to take on the responsibilities of the world, and that it was an either or thing? At what point is
Yeah.
that impression, put on us as human beings? What's your sense, by the way? I mean,
I think that happens a lot sooner than we should have it happen.
mm,
Because even as adults, like when we play together, we learn things about each other and we build relationships way faster through play than through like sitting in a classroom learning.
sure,
Um,
like regiment or
or
hardship.
yeah, having it regimented and like told to you. Um, like when you and I have played frisbee, we learn that we have fun together and it's more fun that way. Like,
Yeah, it's fun to get you just have conversations within play that you realize, oh, that's who this person really is when they can put down their, you know,
their
their
guards.
tenacious style or their guard or their whatever. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. There's kind of the inner kiddo that I'm
Hmm.
connecting with.
Yeah.
That's so the I just have this great memory of earlier. Gosh, it had to have been nice out. So it probably was fall of last year. When was it? When all of a sudden I hear a knock on the door. I'm like, who's knocking on our door? What? I
Yeah.
go down, and you and Emmy are there, and you had just gone on uh, a little bike ride on the
Yeah.
trail right out here. And I just learned today in our prep that was not a pedal bike. That was a little, what would you call that? Just a little scooty bike,
So that's a balance bike.
balance bike.
Yeah. So
You guys just showed up, said hello. So
yeah.
I know play and bikes go hand in hand for you as a human, and she's
Yeah.
taking to it brilliantly.
She is liking riding her bike. Just turned 4. Transitioned from her balance bike with no pedals to her pedal bike with pedals, no training wheels, and just boom, off and gone. And yeah, we went to a big parking lot to get her to go onto pedals,
Uh,
and yeah, she took off, and she didn't know how to use her brakes yet, because she has hand brakes already, no coaster brake, and just took off. And I didn't teach her how to use hand brakes. I was like, we should we'll learn how to pedal first and then use brakes. But she took off, and I was like full dead sprint across this parking lot because she's coming up to a road, and I'm
yeah,
like, I gotta catch her before she gets there because she doesn't know how to use her brakes.
gosh,
I was like running so good that my cell phone just like ejected from my pocket
of course.
and
Yeah. But you caught her. You caught her. All was well. All was well.
got up. Yeah, I caught up to her. Luckily, nobody's on the road, but you don't know. And that was a lot of fun. So, but yeah, we've been
Walk,
riding.
walk me through the process of like, guiding a little kiddo from, say crawling to walking to biking to then pedal biking. Like how did you think through it? Or what do I get to look forward to as a new dad? What's the ages where you introduce the two wheels first off, and then at some point you put them on a pedal bike? So what
Yeah.
was the timelines?
So a lot of it, I was like, you got to figure it out on your own. like she would go from like army crawling to crawling a little bit. But then we thought she was just gonna like go straight up onto her feet and start walking. But she was a little bit different. Emmy did things and she figured it out. As I kept telling her, I was like, you got to figure it out. And a lot of times it wasn't like, here, this is how you do it. I was like, you got to figure it out. Like, you're just going to have to do it. So she figured out how to walk on her knees. And she would just walk on her knees everywhere. And then after, yeah, and it was just the funniest looking thing.
Yeah.
Because she would just scoot on her knees and she would just be like, phew, gone. And you're like, how are you doing this so fast on your knees? It's really hard to walk on your knees.
I was gonna say it almost takes more core strength to walk on your knees, I would think, and more pain tolerance.
Yeah.
At least for us old guys, it's like walking on my knees sounds terrible.
Well,
It's just
I walk on my knees all the time because I'm shooting photos and
that's true. You do, don't you?
yeah, so to get in the right spots, a lot of times you have to be on your knees. So maybe she saw me walk on my knees and then she's like, oh, that's how you do it.
Yeah.
But I talked to a physical therapist because I was in a physical therapy office doing photos for their office. And I was talking to her about that. And she's like, as you were saying, it takes a lot more core strength and a lot more strength to walk on your knees. She's
Yeah.
like, how long has she been walking on her knees? I was like, I don't know, months. And she's like, oh man, you've got a strong girl. And then she got on her feet and she was just off and running. And yeah, she runs like, she looks like a marathon runner when she's running, and that's how it's been ever since she's running.
Perfect
Yeah,
form. Just great gait.
yeah, she's got great cadence. She's got the arm movement down, everything. Um, and
Her nature.
one of her favorite things right now is to go in the backyard. Actually, it's been for months. It's been almost for a year, where we'll go in the backyard and she'll be like, "Daddy, run,"
Hmm.
and there's no like stop to the run. It's just run. Just keep running until you can't run anymore. And for me, that's not very far. I don't like running unless we're playing like Ultimate Frisbee or some other game like that,
Right.
because you can run for a short time and then have a break. But she just likes to run.
Sounds
Yeah.
like a proper little kiddo. Oh,
Yep.
she's so friendly and so sweet. Just adore her. She's amazing. The smile on her face. The
Yeah.
couple times you brought her to Creative Mornings, the few times you've come over with her, she's just so sweet.
Yeah. She loves it. Uh, every now and then she asks me, she's like, when are we gonna go see David Mack?
Oh no way. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
anytime, Emmy, tell her. She's
Yeah.
invited over. We're gonna do surf and turf soon. We just
We'll do
decided.
surf and turf. Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll show you how to eat fish.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Sardines. Amazing. Amazing.
Or we'll do some other, whole fish because she wants to do
what was
whole
the
fish.
recent you're getting her to explore cuisines a bit, right?
Hmm.
And getting, I can imagine little kids get narrowed in on what they really like, and parents rely on that because it's convenient and dependable and so forth. But
Yeah.
you're inviting her to step outside her food zones, and recently she was
Yeah.
trying some
So
good stuff. I mean, tell me about that.
yeah. So last night we had mussels for the first time, and we go to the fish market about once a week, and all the time she's like, I want a whole fish. But last week she was like, I want to try or well, first she asked, what are those in the case? And I was like, oh, those are mussels. And we can eat them. And she's like, can we get mussels sometime? So we got mussels yesterday.
How did
And
you describe them to her? Because they're not really fish, right? So
yeah,
they're fishy.
they're
But how did
fishy.
and she's like, "What are those?" How do you describe them to a 3.5, 4 year old, such that they go, "Oh, that sounds delicious. I want
Yeah.
those."
So, so our fish market's really cool. The fishmongers are great. And I was like, hey, can you just pull out a mussel so we can see it? And they're like, yeah, sure. Here you go. And they just pulled out one of the mussels, and she was able to look at it and hold it. And she's like, how do you eat it? And we were like, well, you don't eat the shell, the hard part that you're holding on to. there's a little muscle on the inside, and we'll cook it, and then we'll pull it apart, and you can pull that muscle out and just eat it. And she's like, oh, okay. Um, so she helped me clean them last night in the sink and pull off any of the algae or seaweed or whatever the like beard is that's stuck to them. And we pulled that out, and then put it into a pot and steamed them, and they opened up and they were good to go. So yeah, so then she would pull it out of the shell, and she's like, now what do I do? I was like, just put that whole thing in your mouth and chew on it. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, it's like this. And I took one and ate it, and she's like, oh, cool. And then she just really, really liked eating it, and she ate a half dozen mussels last night. So
Goodness.
yeah, and pasta, and yeah. So it was a good meal.
Wow. What a explorer, a cuisine explorer she is. Incredible.
Yes.
What
Yeah,
other what other
we had
favorite foods?
sardines, and
You had
she had
sardines.
sardines another time because she wanted whole fish,
Yeah.
and yeah, so that night we ate a whole bunch of sardines, and it was a
Good.
lot more work for me because I was picking out bones. You can eat sardine bones, but there's just a lot of them, and it's like you're picking things out of your teeth
Sure.
a lot. So um, it was a little weird, but
What are some
tasted
of
really good.
her other favorite foods? I'm trying to
Chicken.
think. I suppose you and Rachel like this you like fish, you like mussels, you like sardines, I suppose. Like that's not my style. So the idea that I would give Leo sardines, probably not happening. Maybe Mackenzie would want to feed him some what's the tiny fish up in Wisconsin and Minnesota that people love to eat? I'm trying to think of it. Um,
Oh, uh,
often you get it with like a Bloody Mary or a beer or I don't know. Either way, not my style. Clearly, it's just it's more of a familial thing. But you're
yeah.
also giving her all sorts of other goodies. What's her favorite? You just said chicken. What else does she like?
Oh, I was gonna say chicken nuggies.
Chicken
Chicken
nuggets.
nuggets. Yeah,
Of course.
we have a bunch of frozen chicken dino nuggets in the fridge or in the freezer, and I mean it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, she loves Chick-fil-A. Nice little Chick-fil-A plug. Um, yeah, chicken nuggets are good. Hot dogs. Hot dogs are a big pull. Um,
Can't blame her there.
yeah, like the typical kids' foods that you would think of. She loves all of those.
So you're in a way, thinking about some of the themes that I want to explore as I have these conversations. That sounds to me like adventure. You're teaching her the adventure of cuisine. What
Hmm.
other what other you're imagine you put her down for bed, you and Rachel are talking about being great parents and just savoring this experience that you're now involved in. And are there other or are there specific themes about being a great set of parents that you are discussing together, or certain characteristics or skills that you want to bestow on to Emmy in her early 4 years? How are you thinking about the role of parenthood with, you know, a 4-year-old, someone you adopted, someone who's, just the just eating up the world and hungry for everything. What's on your mind if you were to share some of those perspectives with your fellow fathers who are listening in? How are you
Oh,
approaching it? You and then maybe you and Rachel together.
I think we like to take it as like a team approach, because shoot, like there's all kinds of girl things I don't get because I'm a guy. Um, I didn't learn any of those things growing up of how it is to be a girl. Um, but then like there's other aspects of just when Emmy goes to bed, we just like end up telling stories about her that we experienced in the day, and that's fun. But then there's other sides of it, like She's starting to play with some of the neighborhood kids now because she's getting old enough. Um, and we just have to like think about like, oh, okay, so if we haven't had dinner yet and the boy across the street wants to come over and play, we're gonna have to say no because that means like if they play together, then she's gonna have a really late dinner, and then that pushes off bedtime, and it's just like a cascading effect. So it's like it happened this week where they were playing, and we came in for dinner. It was almost 8 o'clock, which is actually the time that we need to start getting ready for bed. Um, yeah, so just pushed everything off. And she loves playing with him, but he's 2 years older. So we just kind of have to look at like different aspects of play and how that works and what it looks like for um, and a girl and a boy playing, which at this point, like they're just kids and they're just playing, but he's experienced the world for 2 years longer and has an older brother who's in high school. So there's like just differences in life experience that we just have to look at in a different aspect. But it's great that she has a friend in the neighborhood that she really likes playing with. She was riding on pedals before he was, so it was pretty funny. She was like, Lee, this is how you do it. Just do this. And she just took off, and he's like, I don't know how to do that. But now he's just like tearing down the street. But she's like, you have to stop at the stop sign because there's an intersection at the bottom of our street. And he's like, I just go through it. And I'm like, no, dude. Like, because I was riding with them on Monday. I was like, no, see that red sign? You stop at the red sign. It doesn't matter if there's hardly ever cars on it. You just have to stop because you coming down the street, they're not going to see you. Yeah, so you just have to think about things differently. Like all the things that are normal for us now, you have to like rethink like when did I learn that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when did I learn don't interrupt people when they're talking?
Right.
we're
So
we're
those are
going
the
through.
kind of lessons you're kind of teaching her right now, and she's obeying stop signs better than Lee is, it sounds like. But you're teaching her,
Yeah.
hey, there's some rules, there's some order, and maybe you're
Yeah.
not being explicit and saying, we all sat down and agreed that there's a stop sign here, and
Yeah.
there's stoplights, and there's all this structure, and well, there's all this chaos and madness in the world, and we try to wrangle it with things like stop signs.
Yes.
But you're teaching her
Unlike
rules, teaching her some structure.
teaching us rules and some structure and just how to go about doing things and how to interact with people and like just in a conversation you have eye contact with somebody. You're not looking all over the place or paying attention to something else or um, but you just have genuine interaction with people. That's like one of the rules that we have at our house of it's dinner time. Parents, you don't get to be on your phones. You have to put your phone away. She'll call me out on that frequently because I'll be like checking something and because it's just normal for us as adults to be like attached to our phone in some aspect. And like at dinner, she's like, Daddy, put your phone away. I'm like,
Amazing.
okay.
Well,
So she's like calling me out on junk now.
you're like, there's rules, and then
And we
there's exceptions to rules.
Yeah, we try to say that, but like the
Or-
exception to the rule is not actually like a good exception. It's
Okay,
just
yeah,
me trying
that
to bend my own rule.
that just sounds complex. Like that, there's even rules for a kid to understand those. In the beginning, challenging, eventually good, and then that there's exceptions to them. That seems master level or next level.
Yeah.
You said she's calling you out on stuff. She's calling you out on your phone. She's calling you out on bad habits or certain things. What is she calling you out on?
So I bite my nails and I have for as long as I can remember. Um, and she'll call me out on that frequently. Like I'll be biting on a nail and she'll be like walking by a room, like to go somewhere else and I'll be biting on my nail and as she's walking through the room, she's like, "Daddy, don't bite on your nails."
You
And
just
like keeps going.
amazing.
Yeah. It's pretty funny.
It's
Um,
it's adorable. well, and frankly, I mean, it's just like the cutest thing in the world thinking about little kiddos acting, thinking, advising like adults, or
Yeah.
our counterparts just holding each other. She's your little accountability partner, man. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's intimidating for sure. Cause like, like at Leo's stage now, like when you're talking in the house, um, he's not picking up and repeating the words that you say. That's a good one for keeping you accountable for like how you speak to people and how you interact with them. At some point, they're gonna take that and then regurgitate it instantly, and you're like, shit. And then all of a sudden you're like, dang it, I can't say that. Like, because then she's gonna say it somewhere else. Um, and yeah, that's not
I've
cool.
caught
So
myself with our dog Smoke. All dogs like to lick, a little. Smoke, she'll come up to you and it's just overwhelming. You're like, no, no, gentle, stop, no, no. And most of the time she'll pay attention. But
yeah,
every now and then you have to let her know who's boss, right? You're
yeah,
like, cut that shit out. And
yeah,
I've caught myself a few times. He's right here on the ground with me. Smoke is just giving it to me. I'm like talking to Smoke the way, the way I probably talk to her most of the time when it's at that level,
yeah,
and not always talking to her that way. I mean, I'm just like snuggling with my dog a lot, but it's like cut it out. And then I'm looking at him and he's watching. He's
yeah,
like shoot. At a certain point, his motor skills and so it's like if I show aggression to Smoke as a way of communicating to her, he's gonna he's
do
gonna
the
think
same
that's the
thing.
way it works, right? And
Yeah,
that's not going to be good in general. It's not going to be good with him and Smoke, him and other dogs. So I'm already seeing that dynamic play out and going, wow, okay, how how can I maintain my cool, be patient with a dog, with Mac, with my fellow humans to lead by example for the little guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's changed my interaction with my dog too. Because there would be times that like he would just anger me so much for you know some things, and I would smack him so hard, like I would smack him so hard that my hand would hurt and sting, just on his butt, uh, and for him, he'd be like, he wouldn't even notice. That's the thing, and it would just make me so angry, and but then Emmy's called me out on that a few times, like, don't get angry at him. I'm like, you're right.
So great. Our
Yeah,
kiddos become truly some of our biggest accountability partners, is my sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I never really thought about it until you threw that on there, but I'm like, yep, totally. She is just like a little accountability partner to be like, I don't want her to treat him like I would.
Yes.
And then, or I want her to treat people the way that they should be, like adults should be treated with respect because they're adults and they've experienced more. And then you should also treat your friends with respect as well. So you should just interact with people in a good, respectful way, um, and like value each person like they should be valued because they have different experiences than you do.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
So shifting gears just a bit, taking it to a different topic in a sense. Who are the people in your life historically that you feel like you kind of, Emmy's learning from your examples? Well, you learned from some people's examples. You mentioned your grandfather earlier as a machinist. You said you have your great grandmother or her great grandmother around as well. So you've got grandparents in the mix. I believe your dad's an artist. I see
Mhm.
some of his, so he's in your realm too. Other people, where did you draw your fatherhood wisdom? Who were the people? What did you learn from them? Either what to do, what not to do. Who deserves those shout outs?
The credit. Well, I mean, definitely my parents. They they provided a lot for us and made it so we had a good upbringing. And they were both like really present, which I think is one of the best things about, or one of the things that I want to be for Emmy is just present. Like my parents played with me a lot and played with me and my sister a lot and were just goofy and weren't like serious about everything all the time. Um, and like both of my parents were working parents. So after school, I would go to my grandparents' house, and they were like kind of our daycare, I guess, in a way. My grandma or my grandpa would pick me up, and we'd go over to my dad's parents' house a lot because my mom's parents were still working. My dad's parents were older and uh, retired around the time that I was in elementary school, and I would just go over to my grandpa John and grandma Carrie's house, and so would my sister, and so would my two cousins. So it'd be like the four of us running around their house almost every day of the week. So I had those parents and grandparents to spend time with, and I would sit with my grandfather for hours on end as he would tie flies in the basement. He was an avid fly fisherman, and he taught me how to fly fish and taught me how to tie flies. And we'd just sit, and I would suck on peppermints from his drawer, and we'd just tie flies all afternoon, all the time. So that was fun. And then my other grandfather, who is the designer and inventor, we would just do stuff at my, so it was Grandpa John and Grandma Carrie, that was my dad's parents, and then Grammy, also known as Grandma Vera, and my Grandpa Ben were my mom's parents. And we go over there too and just have a blast. And my Grandpa Ben would be like working on a car just to get it going, and I would just be sitting on the engine, just watching him do whatever, and we would just have fun. So
So what skill, wisdom, characteristic do you want to impart on Emmy from either your folks or your grandfolks?
it's really just being present because they were there. My grandma Vera, uh, she would have been 95 this year, but she passed away um, two, like two Christmases ago. So
21 Christmas.
22, I think, is when she passed away at 93. And so in my early 20s, I was still living at home with my parents, and my parents and my grandma and my uncle, they all moved into a house together. So then I got to live in a house with my grandma for a long time, and we just had great conversations. And she was plugging me for grandkids well before I even was dating my wife Rachel. And she's like, "I want your grandkids," and I was like, "Well, you got to talk to Sonny and Jeff, your other grandkids. They're already married and they have grandkids, or they have kids." And she's like, "Yeah, that's great. I want yours. So you better get on that." And luckily she was able to hold our daughter for like 2.5 years, and just absolutely loved her. And yeah, she was the first one to like hold Emmy and just have Emmy crack a huge smile. So yeah, just being present for our daughter is a um, huge thing that I've taken from my grandparents and my parents. So
Rest in peace to Grammy Vera.
yep, she was my last grandparent to be alive for a long time. So yep, but she was ready to go. She wanted
Special
to.
moments. She
Yeah,
was.
yeah, she was ready. She would talk about it all the time. She talked about it for like 3 years. um, but I was like, you can't go. Like, I don't have a great grandchild for you yet.
Hold steady.
um,
Hold steady.
yeah, hold steady just for a little while longer. Um, yeah, but yeah, my parents for sure, like they were just present and you know allowed me to experiment with like the thoughts of what I wanted to be when I grew up,
Mm,
which is I got directioned onto this photography role in high school, so
okay.
they allowed me to try things, and I wanted to be an engineer like my grandpa Ben and design stuff and invent, and in a way I still am, um, but I'm creating, which is in realm with that, but um, just in a different way. I'm creating things. So yeah,
No doubt about it. Now, I know it didn't come up early on when I was describing your background, but you were a youth pastor for
yeah,
a notable amount of time in your life. And
yeah.
I'm wondering, you weren't necessarily a father figure. Maybe you were. I wonder what some of the kiddos would say, but you were definitely an adult, a positive
Mhm.
adult figure in their lives. And I suspect you got to see kiddos, in the making, humans in the making. What did you learn from that experience that you're pulling into your fatherhood style?
Probably play on a big part and having fun. Um, and then just like leading her in aspects of like how you have to treat people, but then also just having connections with people. And I think that was a huge formative part of being able to connect with people in front of the camera and anybody that I talk to,
Hmm.
because when you work with teenagers, you have to do awkward well, because
So well said.
middle schoolers are just awkward and it's weird and it's a weird time in your life. And any of us adults that look back on our middle school years were like, those were weird times. I was a weird person at that time. But when you're a sixth, seventh, and eighth grader, that's just life. You don't realize that it's a weird time in your life. You only think it's weird when you look back on it. So being able to, handle awkward well, um, is is a good thing that I learned from being a youth pastor.
Amazing.
I mean, I was a youth pastor for like 17 years, so it was a long time, and I got to see a lot of students grow up and go from being an awkward seventh and eighth grade punk. I'm mostly talking about the boys. Um, the girls, they had it figured out a lot sooner, so that kind of terrifies me about being a girl dad. um, but then also like you get to see them grow up and go from being awkward and weird and having their voice crack and then all of a sudden becoming an adult years later. um, those are fun times, and just being able to see that progression of like, I don't understand why this is happening, and then learning from that time into being an adult. And some of my best friends were my students
Hmm.
years and years ago.
Hmm.
So it's fun. Like, and seeing them grow up and like get out of college and get married and have kids, like that's been such a awesome thing to experience and still be friends with those people. So,
Amazing. What a
yeah.
testament to the guy you are. So think about this. Take a breath or two as I throw this your way. It's like with all your experience, 17 years as a youth pastor, you've now got 4 years under your belt as a father. The key piece of advice, the key heads up, the key don't miss out on, uh, for new dads, soon to be dads, the most valuable piece of wisdom you can harness and serve up to us. What is there to know about early fatherhood that we gotta know?
Hmm. I think I was talking about it before of just being present, but being there, undistracted for your kids, and being able to play, like trying to take away, um, all the distractions of work and relationships and the stressors of the day, which could be anything. Um, and then you just have to like switch all of that off. And us as guys, we're really good at compartmentalizing everything. So try to keep the stressors of the day away from your relationship with your son or daughter,
Mm.
because those stressors are always going to be there. But I was reading a statistic of how you only have your son or daughter at home for a certain amount of time, and then they're off to college. Like you have a short amount of time to teach and experience and have fun with before the craziness of the world comes into your relationship with your son or daughter. And you have a short 18 years. If you have a really gung-ho kid, it might be 17 because they might be going to college at 17. Like I have a friend whose daughter graduated from high school a year early, and she went off to college and did college in 4 years and graduated before she was 22. So, like he had even shorter amount of time with his daughter at home. Um, Although she's back now, living at home, working remotely from home, which he absolutely loves.
No.
Um, but he's like, I get to spend more time with my daughter. This is great. But it's being able to spend time and get to know and lead, and have adventures, even if it's just like a bike ride around the neighborhood. Like you get to see things and spend time together. So you know you may be trying to work 70 hours a week, but um, I was doing that as a youth pastor and a photographer for a long time, and um, it was definitely hard being a dad as well. Um, so being bivocational, it has its things where you get to do two different things and have two different careers, and then you throw in parenthood, and it gets a little bit more difficult. So,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think it is just spending time with your son or daughter and doing as much of that as you possibly can.
If I'm hearing you right, it's give them your undivided attention as much as you can.
Yeah, yeah,
And set aside your phone or whatever, set aside your worries and woes and anxieties and try to be all in with them, undivided attention, because it's going to
yeah,
go by so fast. I'm reading a book. I'm going to fold it into the podcast here in the future, but one of the chapters says, picture the day that your child is leaving your home. Have you
yeah.
equipped them in the right ways, right? And that day will come faster than you think. What do you need to give them or teach them or empower them to do or have between now and then? It's a beautiful question. And
Hmm.
yet, uh, it'll be here before you know it if you're not careful. So, Justin LeVett, final
Yeah,
question. I want you to picture as an exercise decades into the future. Amy's sitting around with the family she's built, friends, talking to maybe a younger generation, weaving tales of her father and celebrating who you are. You're not in the room. I'm not sure where you're at. You're not in the room. What are the three things you are known for as a father to Emmy?
oh, I think being a consistent leader to like adventure, and um how to be like a good person in this world. um
Is that one?
Shoot.
A consistent leader.
A consistent leader. I think a consistent leader is a good one. Um, yeah, so just consistently leading her, or yeah, just consistently leading. And then I think being a man of faith would be a good one. Just she always asks me questions about theology, and I'm like, and we're driving down the road, and I'm like, oh, this is like a legit question. I have to think about this real quick. But just being like a man of faith that's always after God's heart. And then also, I think someone who just really loves her. You know, like she's adopted. There's things that she's already asking us about and asking me about, and they're hard questions. And how to be a man who loves her for who she is. And, you know, she has a different skin color than we do. I know we haven't touched on that, but just being a dad of a girl with color, and how that's totally different. Like, she's like, why does your skin look different than my skin? And she's been asking that for over a year. And just how to be a dad of a girl who's beautiful little black girl that just runs around and has fun. And yeah, just somebody who loves her. So yeah.
Well, you are well on your way. There's high odds all of those will be true, and if they're not already true,
Yeah.
you're on your way. So, Justin, thanks, brother, for spending time with me on Whoa Dad Go Dad. I'm looking forward to talking to you and celebrating your fatherhood journey. And now the people get to hear it. So,
Cool.
appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Surf and turf soon.
Surf and turf. We'll do it.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. See you later.
There you have it. That's been another episode of Whoa Dad Go Dad. If you like what you're hearing, hit the like button, subscribe to the podcast so you get the future ones, and please spread the word and post this episode to your social networks. That's powerful. Perhaps the best thing you can do is share this directly with a new dad or a soon-to-be dad that you know personally. Let them know you're rooting them on. And indeed, drop a comment and be really a part of this dialogue on fatherhood with me. Let me know in the comments a question you want me to ask other dads, or just some feedback. How does this sound to you? What's helpful? What stands out about these conversations? I would appreciate that intel as I grow Whoa Dad Go Dad. I've got many more episodes to come, and I'm so glad you're here. Looking forward to catching you on the next one.
Whoa, Dad, go, Dad, here we go now. Oh, yeah, the ultimate roll now. Oh, yeah, here we go now. Whoa, Dad.